channel. My name's Adrian, and today is an apology. I'm really sorry it's taken me so long to get this actual book reviewed. Long story short, I've got no real excuses other than the fact that other things took over, and it's took me a long time to actually get this on the table, to get it played, to get it reviewed. I have been wanting to play Choir of Flesh for a long time. Alex T sent it to me, I think it was about 5 weeks ago, when I first sort of previewed it. But it's one of those that I'd say it's a lot thicker than I thought from the size of the book. And as a theme, it's absolutely brilliant. Angels, so it's set in 1000 AD in the sort of medieval Europe, but angels have come down from the sky, devils and monsters have come up from the earth, and they're having this end of days climactic battle, and we as humans are trying to survive. But the downside is listening to the choir corrupts and drives the humans mad. But the monsters that have come up from the earth has the same effect, but from a physical corruption point of view. It's brilliant. It's a game of, well, you're going to try and survive, but even the game hints that, you know, when you do get to the end, you are going to be scarred. Both, well, not you, but your character's going to be scarred. Very good chance, physically and mentally, of the atrocities they're going to see and the things you're going to have to do to survive. It's a dark, grim world, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's currently available on Kickstarter, so we've got 48 hours to go, round about a time of release. So I'd say, again, apologise for it coming out. But there are links in there. There'll probably be a late pledge. If not, it will be available on the Black Oath website and on Drive4RPG on print on demand, all of which I will link when the time is ready for them. So there's going to be no sort of, here's your links to buy it. So that will all be in the video descriptions. There will be affiliate links in there at some stage as well. So if you are going to grab it, please do consider using my affiliate link. But here is the cover. I think you'll agree, doesn't really show much other than it's not going to be a nice place to be. You know, it doesn't look nice. So it comes in at 231 pages, which is why it's taken me a while to get played, because not only is this a single co-op player game that you're trying to survive, you can end up building your encampment up. There's got rules for that. You've also got these other rules where you hand in the rumours that you've found and then go into, it's kind of like a mini game, but far better than that. But let me just let me break down the contents. I think is probably the best thing to do, so you can get just an idea of what's coming up. Before we get into that, obviously here we've got, it's designed and written by Alex T, additional writing by Richard Kelly, and all the artwork is in here. No AI has been used in this, and it does say here, disclaimer, mature content. It's all over this book. It's, you know, if you are someone that isn't into body horror and you don't really want adult themes, you should probably just stop now. If all that sounds exciting and good, and it's the sort of things that you like, you're going to want this. You're going to want to add this to your collection. And so what I'll do is I'll just sort of take you through. So we've got background to the world. Always a great start, I think, in the contents. It's all hyperlinked, as you can see, and the font used is nice and easy for me as dyslexic, so it's been a joy to read and follow through. The reason it's taken me so long is because there's so bloody much to it. It's actually, I would say this is probably one of his heavier games, because of there's quite a lot of rules in here. Things like, you know, when we get into anguish and some conditions and things like that, that the players are going to be taken. Well, as in the players, you know, this is a GM-less game. You are the person that's going to be rolling your own demise, which made it really fun when I was spending my evenings with it. Okay, we're then getting straight to character creation, which I like. It's a nice, easy system to use. D20 roll over. We then get the games rule section. So it's going to take you through how checks work, anguish, combat, trauma, death. You're going to die. I've on my, is it third or fourth character? It's like, because I did it with a buddy system. This allows you to play it co-op with the buddy, as in with a companion. So and my companions tend to die before I do, because I tend to hide behind them. But we'll then get a little bit more detail, so more exploring the world, some of the 16 worlds discussed in the 16 pages discussing the apocalypse. Then got 30 odd pages of rules for the creatures, which is effectively a bestiary. We're then going to get into gear and spoils of war, magic items, armor, masterwork weapons, special relics, and then the apocalyptic items you can find. And then amazingly at the back, Alex has put this appendix, which is all the tables you're going to need, because this, I said, this game is quite heavy. There's quite a fair amount to it, which is why it's took me longer to get. I was thinking I'll get this reviewed and done in a week, but oh no, it's there's a lot to sort of bookkeep as you play. But those appendix, print them off. You're going to want them to your side as you go through. So here's the summary of the world again, what's going on. So the year is 1000 AD, and it's just end of time. So the people that have descended from the skies are the celestial choir, and the people, I say meeple, monsters, angels, demons, and those that have come up from the ground or the abyss are the flesh that feeds. And they are basically two opposed forces. Kind of heaven and hell. It's very much that feel, but a heaven that, well, humans can't cope listening to the voices, so it's that sort of dark. There's not a lot of humans left. A lot of people just died instantly, so you're one of the survivors and you're trying to just get by in this world. It's going to open up then. It would take a little bit more about how does Choir of Flesh play. It is a solo game or a GM-less player. It can be played with the Games Master if you want to, but if you don't want to, it's got all the rules and all the tables on how to run it. I've been running this perfectly, absolutely fine solo. You're going to use dice. In essence, it's a D20, as I said earlier, roll over, but you're still going to need D10s, D6s, D4s, and D12s, mainly for different. There's a lot of tables in here, random roll tables. So yeah, just have your full set of dice available. But here's the core themes. Obviously it's survival. You're going to try and survive in the medieval Europe. It's a horror game. I can't read that word. The rapture has happened. It's end of days. Body horror. Your flesh is going to get mutated, and some of the mutations are good, some of them not so much. Medieval apocalypse. So it is set in the remnants of France at 1000 AD, and this is what's said about the no clean victories. So even when you win, inverted commas, you are going to be left with scars, both physically, mentally, or both. Opening into chapter 2, character creation. So it's creating your Unbroken. But as you can see, this kind of just explains what it is you're going to be fighting. It gives you an idea of what's going on in the world. The artwork throughout this, it's all black and white, but it is absolutely brilliant. But character creation's nice and simple. So you roll your attributes, you determine your defensive rating, your carrying capacity, and your initiative. You pick one weapon, one arm proficiency. Then pick a feat. You can have additional feats if you want to take some drawbacks. So it's basically like advantages and disadvantages if you're aware of those sort of names. You're then going to roll your sins, your shard, your doom, and occupation, and then you're just going to create your character with additional weapons, give it a name, and off you go. That's it. Simple as that. Okay, so what stats does it use? It uses 6 stats. These should all be very familiar. Strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, and presence. If you played the Machine Gods of the Noxious Expanse, it's that. If you played 5th edition or Morkborg, any of those, it's just that system. Roll a d20, add your bonus or modifier from your attribute, and looking to achieve over a TN in this game, which is a target number. So we have got some other characteristics. Anguish, which is your measure of coping with stress and despair. Carrying capacity, DR rating, which is how hard you're going to be hit. The monsters don't roll. You're going to be rolling against your own DR, trying to dodge it. There will be some adjustments for the monsters that you're fighting. Drawbacks, I say disadvantages, or things that they're mainly minuses to dice rolls. From the drawbacks, feats, a lot of them are pluses to dice roll. Your humanity, it's going to start at 20 and it's going to go down as you interact with the world and see things, and once you get to 0, your character is gone. Initiative, how quick you're going to go in combat. There are 2 types of injuries, major and minor injuries. So you can see it's here, and I'll just cover that once we get onto the damage rules. All PCs have a move speed of 2 because the combat is gridded. You've got some proficiencies, which will be starting weapons and armor. And then vigor is your character, represents the ability to sustain injuries that would normally incapacitate or even kill them. So initially you're going to get 1 feat. You can pick them. You can roll them, but just go and pick something that's quite good. So like Precise Warrior here, when in combat you score a critical on a 19 or 20. Say drawbacks is good. And I haven't seen this one before. I don't think it was in Machine Gods. But when you pick your drawback, you're going to roll d12, and if you roll an 11 or 12, you don't actually get one. So you could push your luck a little bit to try and get some additional drawbacks. Just be careful though, because missing eye is here, and obviously if you get 2 missing eyes, your adventuring is probably going to just end from there, and you have to add a new character. You will get to pick 4 skills, and skills are broken down under strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, and presence. And again, the skills, as a general rule, will just give pluses to masteries. You're then going to get a sin, which is pride, wrath, heresy. Again, rolling the d10 on this. I'm not going to spoil it. It will sort of flesh out your character and things that your character won't like doing. And then you're going to have a shard of the old world. This is something that hopefully, well, it's got game mechanics as well, but it's going to keep you grounded. It's going to remind you of a time that was better. And again, d10 in here, and it'll just detail exactly how it's going to have the interaction. And then finally, you're going to get your doomed quest. So this is a d10 roll, and this is the main driver of what it is you're trying to do or achieve. Once that's all done, we're going to look at background, and it does say you can pick or roll. And if you randomly roll background, again, I would do this. This is what happened again before the rapture kicked in, and every occupation has a list of skills. Pick 1 for your character or roll it, and then you're allowed to take one of those skills as well. Okay, and that will just link back to the skill section. Random names, if you're one of the people like me that struggles for names, I tend to just jump on internet and go, can I have a random name generator? There's random names in here. So a lot of D100 tables. If you're going to run with a companion or you're having a party, you can just roll a D10 here, and it'll determine how you know each other. So you could be a lord and servant, which is quite a fun relationship. From an experience point of view, this game is experience-based. It is level-based in essence, but it's kind of not like 5th edition or 3.5 in that way that you level up, because once you've got to 50 experience, you're going to go to level 2. But then you're going to be allowed to, you're going to get 6 development points, and then you can spend that either getting a new feat, acquiring a new weapon, or armor proficiency. You can increase an attribute if you're willing to save them up, 20 points, so it's going to take you at least 4 levels to do that, or you can get a new skill. Every time you spend your experience, so it doesn't go from 50 to 54, you spend your experience, so you'd reset. So it is going to be harder to go all the way up through to level 10. I didn't manage to achieve level 10. I've never really got to the end of this. I don't really count hours of play, but I did manage to get to 1 character to 5th level. So that is as far as I've got through, and it's allowed me though to have a good extended play with this. Your settlement, it does say go lone wolf, so if you're not a fan of civilization type abstract building, you don't have to. It's not going to make the game any harder or easier, but it does mean that you've got a safe place to come back to. And again, another one of those type of, I always class them as mini games, so it's just some additional things to do. But your settlement will increase or decrease as time goes on. It will have population, and you can build additional structures and things, but it does mean that you will have to do some gather food, water, resources and stuff, but it's not quite as harsh, because in between adventures what will happen is you determine whether your population is going to scale up. So you're going to start initially in this little farmstead with just a few of you, and if you go well, you can build all the way up here up into a town, which is going to be a population of 501 to 1,000 people. And you're going to be randomly rolling structures, or you can pick the structures that you want to build depending on, and each structure that you build will give additional benefits. You've got a maximum spending phase, gathering, so the stress isn't going to all be down on you as the player characters or characters to get the resources. Luckily, the villagers or the commune will actually go out and gather resources as well. And then as you gather resources and build things, so for example, if you've got enough time and resources and wood and stone, you can build a smithy, which is going to allow you to re-roll any number of dice. So as much as the game says it isn't going to make you, it doesn't make the game harder. It doesn't, but what it will do is it makes this bit easier. So as you're creating your base and your settlement, the things that you build will actually make your settlement rolls easier, which will allow it to grow. And then you are going to be at time to time find additional items and things like that. You're also going to then roll on a settlement event table once per your back. Do I spoil one? Yeah, let's go with this. 69 to 72, a powerful mutated beast, a hard creature. I'll explain hard creatures when we get to it. Claims a victory in the Neil settlement and its hunting grounds. Preying or scavenging, and look out, it must be dealt with. So that's going to give you something else to get going once you go adventuring. If you need a name for it, random names generators, but now and again you're going to find between 1 to 10 notable citizens. These are people with a fleshed out background and some descriptors, and they're going to have some settlement benefits as well as a potential problem that you're going to have to deal with for them turning up and being in your settlement. So it just adds a little bit more. Core rules, really simple. Dynamic target tables is the slight wriggle that I think people may find slightly harder. So print this off. Well, it's back in the appendix at the back anyway. But what this basically means is what we're looking at is your modifier here for your attribute modifier. And if you want an average difficulty, you're going to roll your d20, and let's say you've got a modifier of 0, you're going to need to get an 11 to succeed. But if you want the check to be easy, then you're looking at 9s. If you want it to be harder, you'll go to 13. This is a way of allowing the game to scale up with you as a player. So as your attribute bonuses get larger, you can, the difficulties are going to get harder, but you scale it up with you, because if you keep it at a static 12 and you've got a +6 in a stat, it's going to be a lot easier to do that. It's up to you how you play it, but this is also going to affect the monsters. So when we look at the monster section towards the back of the book, just remember this, because whether they're easy monster to hit, average monster to hit, or hard monster to hit will determine the starting TN that you're going to get to. Certain aspects or feats may give you advantage and disadvantage. This should be very familiar to people. If it's not, advantage, you roll 2 dice and pick the higher number. Disadvantage, you roll 2 dice and pick the lower. 20s on a d20 will always give you the best success, so it's a critical, and a 1 will always give you the worst success. Opposed rolls, so if you're going, I always pick stealth versus perception, so if you're trying to notice something, ties go to whoever's got the highest attribute. You can assist with people, so if you've got companions that want to help you, they effectively give up their action and then you get to roll it with advantage, but it must be an action they can help you with. So they're not going to be able to assist you realistically in combat, for argument's sake, but obviously if it's things like climbing a wall and they're not going to climb, they could theoretically give you a boost up to get over, not a whole wall, but depending on how high the wall is, etc. Masteries and burdens, these come off skills as a general rule. Some of them are feats, but if you've got a mastery, if you've got a +1 or +2, that happens after the dice roll. Again, likewise with the burden, that -X or whatever it will be will come off after you've rolled the dice. That's it. That's pretty much the game mechanics. Usage dice. Alex loves these. I've only recently discovered them and started playing with them. How a usage dice works is there will be certain things you need to keep track of, and it might start at d20 for argument's sake, but we'll just use this d20 chain. So this will determine just how many arrows you've got in your quiver. So you start as a d20, and every time you fire an arrow, you roll that d20. If it ever rolls a 1 or a 2, you exchange the d20 for a d12. And this is how usage dice works. And as you can see, as time goes on, as that die size gets smaller, there's more chance you've got to roll a 1 or a 2, which means your resources, whatever it may be, are depleting. Because eventually, once you get down to the d4, 50-50 that you're going to run out. Humanity is what you need to keep. So as I say, it starts at 20, and once it goes to 0, you are fully lost. And different things will lose your humanity. So, and you get blessings of the flesh, witnessing or committing true horrors. But there are things you can do to regain it, so acts of defiance, finding sacred relics, or human connections. Again, this will all just come out in gameplay. I don't want to get really into, total mechanics of stuff here for this sort of review. But as your humanity reduces, then your burden and social checks will get harder. People will notice the fact, the darkening in your eyes, the fact that you just sort of stare off into the distance and, you don't really pay attention to things, or you just generally losing the ability to care as you're talking to others. On the flip side, anguish is the measure of your soul's slow erosion. So it's your spirit or psychological toll taken on the world. This starts at 0 and it's going to increase over time. And again, there's a variety of things that will happen. Personal failure, betrayals, and if you get to the end of the day and you haven't managed to take any rations, so yeah, this like anything else, anguish can come down, and then once you get to a certain stage, you might end up having a full-on breakdown, which could lead to anything from a panic attack to a moment of clarity. It's quite nice that clarity one is in there, but I'm not going to spoil anything in these tables. Combat is using a 5x5 grid. And turns are, someone will go after initiative and then the next person. There's no real surprise unless you're actively looking for surprise or they're surprising you. So as a general rule, most combat will just start and go. And then you would just then roll initiative and add your d20 plus an initiative modifier. Obviously, if there is a surprise, someone's going to get a whole turn before someone else. But what we need to do then is get the NPCs down onto this grid. Importantly, if you get surprise on them, you can come onto the grid wherever you want. But you're going to be randomly placing the monsters. But the first thing you need to do is just randomly roll for any terrain. Are there any terrain features on here, which you're going to roll a d12? If so, roll the terrain features and then randomly put them on the map using the grid there. And exactly the same thing for placing the NPCs. And once they're on, like you can see in the example, you will then randomly roll for where the players come on, unless they did manage to get a surprise check, and then they can come on from whichever side they want to. Different spells, abilities will have things like area effects, and this just details here the difference between a blast, a burst, and an explosion. You can use cover, which obviously is for range attacks. You still get critical hits, critical misses, 20s and 1s, as previously discussed. And then I'm not going to get into the finer points of combat. But you can have 4 actions. You can do 1 free action, 1 move, 1 reaction, 1 standard action. Standard actions should be familiar. This is things like an attack, maneuver, charge, create an opening, disarm, things along those lines. You can then do a move, but what you can't do is you can't move, attack, and then move. You are kind of left where you are. Oh, and once you've finished your move, there are facing rules as well. So if you're not in melee combat, you need to decide which way on the grid that you're facing. And finally, if you're not attacking anyone, you can run away. So you have got that option. Dealing with injuries and attack rolls. So when a PC attacks, they take their d20, add their strength or dex modifier, depending on the weapon they used, and they're looking to beat the creature's defense value, which we'll look at when we get to them. When an NPC or monster is attacking us, again, use the player, roll the d20. You're going to get to add your DR, which is your defense rating, and you're going to compare that to the opponent's attack. And if it beats or exceeds that, you're going to get an injury, okay? So injuries are down into 2 ways. So if they exceed or equal the rolls, in general, whether it's attack or defense, you're going to get a major injury. And if you roll under by less than 3, it's 1 minor injury, and roll under -4, no injuries. Okay, again, this is all summarized at the back. It sounds complicated, but if you beat the roll or achieve the roll, major injury. Roll under by 3 or less, minor injury. 4 or more under, no injury. Okay, and then we get a little table here. So as a player, we're going to get 4 major injuries before we die, and then we get 8 minor injuries before we die. The only thing is, every time you get a major injury, you will then roll on, depending on the type of damage, whether it be bludgeoning, corrosive, divine fire, piercing, primordial, or slashing, you're going to get to roll and then take an additional potential injury. So it might be permanent, and at the end of the combat, you're going to get your minor or major injuries back. But anything that you've rolled off the injury effects table could stay, depending on how long it tells you to keep it for. Trauma, though, is the slight variance, and that means every major injury you get is going to give you an additional point of trauma. And then, depending on the level of trauma that you've got, you're going to have to look at the consequences. You can heal trauma through sanctuary and rest, dedicated care, a glimmer of peace, or anything supernatural that you may find in the game. There's a variety of conditions in here, from fatigue to sickened to suffocating and drowning, and that will just detail in that section there is how it works and how you can heal it. So it's not all bad. You can use a touch of supernatural to do prayers. There are 4 types of prayers. You've got minor, standard, major, and apocalyptic. And the only difference is the grander the prayer, the larger the bonus that you're going to get to roll on here. So what you will then do is roll a d100 and get the quiet price on here. Okay, so again, not going to read it out, but you definitely don't want to roll 100. Or if you're going to do the major one, don't roll 50 more because you're going to add plus 50 to the roll. And then it's just going to detail the minor, standard, major, and apocalyptic anthems that you're going to get, as well as this picture of a screaming nun that's just being consumed here. Let's just pick on one. So just give you an idea of one of the prayers here. So heart-stopping whisper, your target suffers a major injury as their heart stops for a moment. But if you don't want to take the blessings from the more heavenly creature, you can take blessings of the flesh from the demon side to make things easier. And again, this is going to give you some sort of special powers. So you're going to get a gift, a random gift that's going to give you on a d20. But on the flip side, you're going to get some sort of stigma attached. But as a player, it's really up to you as to what you want to do. We're then going to get into running, which is the Games Master section. Okay, this is going to give you your hints and tips on how to run a solo game. So if you've never played a solo game, this is probably going to be the hardest and the longest bit that you're going to spend time in. Okay, because you still need to work out what you as the player is going to be doing when you're out adventuring. And this book is going to give you things like hooks, development and tension, and then climax. And they're going to go backwards and forwards until you get to the climax again, because you might find developing tension, there's multiple of them as things goes on. But what you want to do to keep it grim and dark is make it personal. Attach certain real life characters or NPCs to your character. The price of power is, the prayers and the blessings are temptations, but they're also going to, on the flip side, come with bad things and body horror. And reward the struggle. The world is bleak. Character efforts should be rewarded. Give XP for defeating enemies and for each session played. It's then going to give you a d20 table on hooks. So this is an idea of why the players, or I keep saying players, but you as the player are going to go out. So if you roll a 7, you're going to find a map. So you find a corpse of the flesh apostate, their body in the ruin of half-formed tumors. Clutching their hands is a map tattooed to a strip of flesh on their skin. It's supposed to lead to a death spot where the choir song cannot reach, deep within the penitent's crusade marching route. So they say it's just going to give you loads of things. Then you're going to get developments. So how is that going to develop on? Again, another d20. We're then going to get some tension, so things that will change. So, for example, we've got a hunt here. So again, a pack of flesh apostates. Cunning in their mindless beasts, they're going to be hunting you and stalking you because, well, it makes sense that they've got that map. So again, you're just building this out for yourselves, and then once you actually achieve your goal, you roll a d20 and it might not go as well as once. So for example, on the 1 you get a hollow victory, you succeed, the monster is slain, the ritual is stopped, the sanctuary is cleansed, so whatever it was at the end of the goal. However, read it for yourself when you buy this to find out what's bad. Okay, so solo narrative tools. This is going to help you with interactions with players and player characters. Okay, so what you need to think about here is it gives good examples in here. I probably should have said this earlier. There's plenty of examples in here, but the example here is, will the guard turn around and come my way? Is yes or no. So you work out for yourself a d100, what's the likelihood of them turning around, then you roll a d100 and look to roll under it. But if you want a more nuanced game and want to make it a little bit tougher, you could roll a d6 alongside it, and if you ever roll a 1, you can have a further complication on this table here. Okay, We've then got surprised events. So if we ever roll a surprised event, they can infect the encounter, physical environment, knowledge, player characters, non-player characters, locations, and factions. Okay, and what that means is when we get to this table here, as you say, we've got all these descriptors going down. So you're going to roll 2d8 on this table. So if you roll on your first one, it might end up being the player. And then on this one, it might end up health. So there'll be something that is going to be affecting your player, that is you, that you might wake up being ill one day. So then you've got to go and find out what's going on. And then you can have additional actions over here, which will give you an idea to give you some sort of keywords on what's that. So if you rolled a 16, waste is how we'd work this one. So your health is, and you're starting to waste away. Okay, so you don't know why and what's going on. And then we can have a theme on it as well. So let's just pick wealth. So you could, from that, actually, I did pick up some coins the other day. So maybe the coins are cursed. So you've got to do an element of working things out for yourself. Okay. And there's some hints here on how to interpret things and different tables and resolutions as well. So if you just want to randomly roll whether you succeed or don't, you can just roll a d20 and you can just go from a critical failure to a critical success on what it is they're trying to achieve. I do think this possibly might be where inexperienced players and games masters might struggle. However, persevere, it's worth it. Because even when you get something wrong or something wrong on the table, it's pretty much just you that's aware of it. So as time goes on and you get more experienced and confident with the book, you will find that this starts to flow. Whenever they interact with NPCs or new people, we're then going to find out how hostile they are, how they're going to treat them as they're going in. There are some bonuses or modifiers that you might get if the merchant wants to sell something. We're then going to get their emotional state, gender, age, what's the PC doing, NPCs, what's their motivation, descriptors, are they driven or fast or slow. Chapter 4 is going to give us Exploring the Apocalypse. Now this is just a more in-depth story of what went on, and just take your time, read it, because the one thing we haven't talked about is the Purifiers, which is led by Simon de Montagnu, I think that is. He was a former soldier, he's a purifier, and he is kind of feels like a sort of Templar Knight type people that are, they are crusading against both sides, and they are a third faction that you will discover more as the adventure goes on. Okay, so Choir of Flesh is a point crawl. So this isn't a hex crawl, this is a point crawl, and you're going to basically get a piece of paper and just put dot on wherever you're going to start, and then you're going to start adding locations, and each point that you go to, in essence, is one travel day. Okay, so we're not hex crawling out, we are just going from location to location, discovering the worlds. And then once you've picked the point, and once the players get there, you roll a d6. And a 1 to 3 is a ruined landmark, a 4 is a natural feature, a 5 is an area corruption, 6 is a point in the road, so you're just going to put 2 more points off that. And as you go through, so the ruined landmark, you're going to get to roll here on a d20 table. Natural feature, again, another d20. It's going to give you an idea of what's going on, how to explore it when you are doing your exploration. So when you're going in between the 2 points, there are 4 exploration turns, and you've got 4 different things that you can do. So you can travel, hunt and forage. It's quite important, getting food. Also important is rest or gathering rumours. Rumours are something that you need to do to progress the game. Okay, and as you're travelling, say, you might get random encounters, consequences of journeys, and you might bump into creatures of the flesh or creatures of the choir, all sort of link through to the back. Corruptions are in here as well. So it's just, some of this is just horribly nasty, because you think, oh, this isn't going to be too bad, and then you read it. You will find random survivors that obviously you can bring back potentially to your camp, or they, might try and stab you in the back. So it's not all good. But once you've gathered 10 rumours, this is trying to move you towards the end game. You get this incursion. I don't really know how to describe it. But eventually, after a period of time, you will have 10 rumours or more. And if you want to act on those rumours, then you basically, trade them in for this incursion. And then you're going to need this grid. You can download this grid on the Black Oath website. And you create a starting point, and we've got 8 different locations in here. Okay, it seems a bit abstract, but it's kind of abstract. But what you need to be doing is then spending your incursion points to get out. So you're going to roll a d8 to determine where the exit is. You're going to have a d8 twice to pick 2 dangerous areas, re-roll, and then the rest are just going to be points of interest. You will then have 15 incursion points. So this is going to be 15 things you're going to do to interact with it. And one of them may be moving from a grid. Every fight you get is going to cost you 1. You can scavenge for items. It's going to cost you 1. So as you discover places as well, they're going to have events and opportunities in here. It seems complicated, but it's not. It's actually really, really simple. So you've got your dangerous terrain. So these will just go into 2 of the boxes, okay? And this will give you some, you've got to make an average dex check or strength check or will check. But what you're really going to get is these points of interest, which is a D100 table. And this is the things you're going to be interacting with. Now, this is amazing because there's genuinely 100 of these. And I'll just turn over and show you the abandoned scriptorium. So if you happen to roll a 1 on that D100, one of the locations will be the abandoned scriptorium. I don't want to spoil this because this is really about what's going on in the game. But they will have a descriptor, the layout and progression. You've got 2 encounters, and the more encounters you do, the more of your incursion points that you will spend. Most have 2, some of them have 3, and I think there was a couple with 4, and it will give you some sort of encounters and hazards that's going to go on, and then the main loot and reward that you're going to get. So you've got 100 of these dispersed with some art. To say, I know people moan about motion sickness when I scroll through pages. I generally don't want to spoil or show any of this because it's the key part of the game is just go and finding that. Right, bestiary, monsters. How good and interesting are the monsters? When it comes to monsters, what we need to look at first is their behavior during combat, okay? And we can randomly roll who they're going to attack first. Is it going to be most injured, closest person, random, or you can run it in an intelligent way, however you want to. But also in a little bit like Dragonbane, where you kind of randomly roll to determine what the monster's going to be doing. Depending on how many injuries they've got, will also determine what they're going to do in their turn. And eventually, once you get them to 2 or more major injuries, there's a chance they may flee. Okay, and if they flee, you still get the experience. They are counted as achieving that encounter. Now, determine whether the monsters are easy, average, or hard. I showed you that table to sort of change the dice rolls. It will also affect how many major and minor injuries they're going to get as well. Creature stat blocks, accuracy, how easy they are to hit you. Remember, you're going to be adding that to their dice roll, well, your dice roll to try and get over your defense number. Attack is the target number that you're going to try and achieve. Again, you've got to use the tables. Constitution is how much physical resistance they can take. Their DR, difficulty to hit them. Dexterity will work against a certain amount of skill rolls that you've got, and then the experience is obvious. Initiative should make sense. What sort of loot you're going to get, how many numbers of them, the perception, their roll, whether they're melee or range, and their overall strength and willpower. So let's look at this posate because that did pop up a fair amount of time. So average attack, so the accuracy is going to add +2 to their dice roll, but their average attack, so if you depending on your plus, will be, you're not going to increase the difficulty to hit. And the same with Constitution and DR. But to experience, these aren't really worthy of your time, but you're going to kill, you will see them a fair amount. This is one of the more common adversaries that you're going to come across. But loot, you're going to get to roll on the loot tables. That is coming up, all the equipment and everything. They get a standard attack and special attack and support action. So just to roll back here. So let's say they've got 1 major injury. They're mostly going to do a standard attack, but on a 1 to 5. And then on a 6 to 8, they're going to do their special attack. So I said that's where it sort of feels like Dragonbane in here. And we've got a lot of creatures. They've all got really cool names and descriptors and art for every single one of them. And, there's a couple of nice things. You don't want a pet hound because bad things happen. It does help with your humanity. Until the point where they are not your hound anymore, which happened to me once, which was horrible. Especially I've got dogs and a dog owner. Gear and spoils of war. Okay, I'm gonna I'm not gonna dwell on this immensely, but obviously one thing to think about is your encumbrance. There is an element of buying and selling, but realistically, most things are bartering. You know, if you think of an age of apocalypse, no one's really keeping count of money, but there are money in here. But we tend to, it's a bit more abstract because obviously we are using the usage dice for things like resources and stuff. But all the weapon traits are in here, whether they're one-handed, brutal, whether they've got things like reach, and it was just going to give you descriptors of them as well as a resource cost in here as well. So you're just turning resources down in here. So money, armor, spoils of war, these are your random tables for your loot. And determine whether armor, you've got masterwork weapons, so if you want slightly better weapons and find them. The relics in here, and then you've got the apocalyptic items, which are going to help keep you alive. Some of them will have drawbacks, so things that are going to go bad if you use them, but you are going to be collecting them, and hopefully they should help you out. And then finally we've got the appendix. I say this is good, this is nice that you can just, I'm hoping that these will just come as a separate PDF at the end, but if not, you can just print these off, and you're going to want to print these off because it's going to take you through character creation, settlement phase, core procedures, the combats, dealing injuries, endless travel, and then remind you of how the incursions work. And the difficulty table said you need this. And then we've got the character sheet, which has got plenty of space for stuff. If not, I think I'd have preferred it stretched out a little bit, if anything. I'm not the greatest at writing in small boxes, but a lot of it you won't need to change because once you've started adding things like gifting and stuff, most of it is staying. But I think I just appreciated it sort of stretched out to the full page. So that's it. That's sadly brings me to the end of Choir of Flesh, which hopefully you're now going to go back, just jump on Kickstarter now, and because you can do PDF and print on demand. So the only worry I would say is that adult warning in the start. If you you probably haven't even got to this stage of the video if you've looked at it and gone, nah, that theme isn't for me. And so it doesn't really make a difference what I say to you because you're not going to be listening to this bit. But if you've got to the end, and you are a fan of D20s, solo, co-op, body horror things, well, you wouldn't have listened this far. So I think you're going to go and get this. So the hardest bit really is using your mind and your imagination to sort of do those the sort of plot hooks and working out what you're doing. But the book really helps flesh it out well. The rules are clean. I had an interview with Alex a while back, and he's a fan of a D100 roll under system, which is for Canethalus. But I'm glad that Alex went with the D20 from Machine Gods for this because it just keeps the system cleaner and it opens up a lot more doors. Because I personally think people find a D20 roll over a little bit simpler because there's several other game mechanics in this book that you've really got to keep an eye on. I'm just going to scroll back because I can't remember just off the top of my head exactly what they're called. But things like, obviously, you've got your humanity, but then you've got your anguish. The combat damage is, that's I don't think I've ever seen a game that allows you to, if you hit, you do a major. If you miss by 3 or less, you still do a minor. And I like that because what it does is it speeds up the combat. Alex is a big fan of having combats in his books, but them not dragging out, and sometimes these can, but because even if you miss there's a good chance you're going to do some minor damage, it just speeds up the combat because there's so much more to this. The fact that you can do your prayers, and when you find some prayers, decide whether you want to go for the more basic prayers or the big major or the apocalyptic prayers, and the chance that something really bad or even losing your character is going to do to when you cast that. But I love the fact you can decide. Obviously, you've got the third faction that we talked about a little bit towards the end of the video, but you can decide how you want to interact with the 2 major factions in this and whether you want to use them to. You don't really pick sides. Well, I never pick sides because I was just trying to survive. Surviving is hard. It really is hard, but it does make it good. And I would say go with a companion. So I'm having 2 fingers up. because what you can do, because you roll the companion, well, I did in the same way that I rolled a major character. So for me, it started becoming sort of Pendragon in that whole, as you go out and find other survivors, you can pull those survivors if you want to become another a companion that's going to run alongside your player. And I was sort of just playing this ongoing arc of, you know, this world that I was building and fleshing out. So for me, death isn't the end. Death is just where I'll just pick up another character and just play with that world. But it's up to you. You know, you can lose a character and start again. So I haven't managed to conclude, because getting rumours, and then every time you got to 10, you can go and do that incursion. The incursion is absolutely brilliant. I cannot believe, especially because I spoke to Alex a few months ago on how quickly that he's put together those 100 incursion locations that you're going to have to interact with to go and find and try and. You're not going to win. You know, if this is one of these games where from what I've seen so far, I don't think you're ever going to, you know, stop the choir from doing whatever the choir's doing. Maybe it might be in the book, I don't know, but I love the fact that you are just a little person that's trying to survive in a world that has practically gone to shit. I'm going to leave it there. It's brilliant. Everything Alex makes and touches is brilliant. So go and support this project on Kickstarter if you've got time. If not, say it will be available direct from Alex's website. If not, definitely TTRPG, all of which I'll link in the video description below. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like, share, subscribe to the channel. And if you've got any recommendations of books and things you think I should review, just drop them in the video. Let me know. Go and support me. I've got my own Patreon. I've got my own Discord. So come and chat with me. And yeah, let's chat role playing stuff. So thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.